Okay, welcome everyone for this information session on Weave. We will kick off with the agenda on the next slide. First of all, some general information. This session is recorded and later on you can have a look at this presentation and the recording. It will be posted on both the FWO and the FNRS website. Then you can, of course, also ask your questions during the info session. You can post them in the Q&A button, and there, during the info session, my colleagues will already answer your questions. Of course, at the end, there is still some time to answer more of your questions. The agenda is as following. First of all, I will give an introduction on Weave in general, what it is and what it can mean for your research. And then Weave within FNRS will be explained by my colleagues of FNRS. And then Weave within FWO explained by Tine, my colleague of FWO. And then, as already mentioned, there is definitely still sufficient time for all your questions. So we will try to answer all of them. Next slide is a little movie on what Weave is about.
Weave is a cross-European initiative to fund and support excellent international research projects. It allows researchers from up to 3 different countries or regions to apply for funding through a single evaluation procedure. Weave aims to make it easier for researchers to collaborate across borders and simplify submission and selection procedures. By enabling bilateral as well as trilateral scientific cooperation within Europe, Weave contributes to the European research area. To apply, a team of researchers choose one coordinating applicant who submits the joint proposal to their respective funding organisation. The other researchers then submit a copy of the proposal to their own funding agencies. Weave is based on the lead agency procedure principle. The funder that receives the proposal evaluates it according to its internal rules. The funding recommendation is communicated to the other funders involved.
So now let me take you through all the necessary steps to explain you how you can make Weave work for your research. So first of all, you can search for opportunities with your partners abroad because there are several countries and several agencies that participate in Weave. So in order to see which countries, agencies and which funding schemes are open for Weave, I would invite you to consult or the website of FWO or the one of FNRS. And by default, it is open for all domains in basic research, and you can not only have a bilateral but also trilateral projects. So let me take you by the hand. So you have a research team in country A and a research team in country B. Next. And together you draft your joint collaborative research project. This means that it should really be collaborative, so make sure that each member of your team that you include in your consortium is of scientifically added value. It means that you need to justify why you have this team and also, of course, justify the request of your budget. Where to submit is something that you also can decide freely. So it's a free choice whether you submit, for example, to FWO or to FNRS or any other country with your proposal, because the Weave success rate is kept at 20% anyway. So there is no strategic choice behind it. But wherever you submit, this funding agency becomes the lead agency that is responsible for the evaluation of your collaborative research projects. Do not forget that there is also an administrative submission to the partner agency or agencies involved. This is obligatory, so if you overlook it, you really risk to have an ineligible submission. Then the lead agency will, of course, inform all the involved partner agencies about the proposals received. Next. And the lead agency will, of course, perform the entire evaluation. Next. Be sure that you check the eligibility by reading through all the regulations of the concerned funding agency for who you are eligible, because each funding agency is in charge of the eligibility check of its own researchers and will also perform the communication. So the lead agency is responsible for the evaluation and will also take the final funding decision. Of course, the lead agency will inform the partner agency about that decision, and the partner agency is ratifying this decision. Next, the final step is, of course, that each funding organization is funding its own researchers. Next, in that sense, the funding is not crossing any border. So you will receive the funding of your own funding agency, and also the reporting, when you're successful, of course, has to be done to your own funding agency. Next slide. So what is now the added value of WEAF? Well, of course, it fosters a balanced collaboration, because you as a researcher, you can apply for the funding that you really need, and this for each partner included. Yeah, it's different that, for example, at FWO, there is also money follows collaboration, where 10% can go abroad in a regular FWO project, but there it's only 10%. Here in WEAF, you can apply for the funding needed also from your partners abroad. It's also bottom-up, so there are no thematic restrictions whatsoever. In that sense, it makes it perfectly complementary to the partnerships and the other European previous ERANETs. The most important thing is that you only need to be successful once in order to receive funding for all the included partners. So in that sense, it's a single application process or evaluation process where there is no double jeopardy. And in addition, you as an applicant, you are already familiar with all the regulations in place, as WEAF is using existing funding programs. So you are familiar with the ones that you used in the past. You can just add your colleagues from abroad and let them also receive funding. So it's a simplified submission, and it's a single evaluation process. In that sense, WEAF is a carte blanche for collaborations with your European partners in a bottom-up way, bilateral or trilateral. Next slide. Who is now already part of the WEAF consortium? Well, the WEAF consortium already counts several funding organizations across Europe. In Austria, it's FWO-F. Of course, in Belgium, it's both FWO and FNRS. Then you have the Czech Republic, Qu'est, you have FNR in Luxembourg, NCN in Poland, FORMAS in Sweden. Then in Croatia, RRZZ, in Germany, DFG, then RCN in Norway, ARIS in Slovenia, and SNSF in Switzerland. And there are also several other ones in a pilot phase. This is NWO, for example, from the Netherlands, is having a pilot with Germany and with Flanders, and there was a pilot between the Spanish and the German colleagues. In that sense, I just want to indicate, please have a look at our WEAF website, because the circle of WEAF is enlarging, and there are already several other funding agencies that are eager to join WEAF in the near future. Next slide. How does it work in practice? So you're here as a Belgian researcher, then you have two possibilities. On the one hand side, you can decide to submit a full proposal at your own funding agency for which you are an eligible researcher. So if you are from Flanders, you can submit in the FWO Junior and Senior Research Fundamental Research Call, or you can submit in the PDR call of FNRS. So les projets de recherche. There you submit your full proposal with budget details for all the included partners, and don't overlook the obligatory administrative submission for other partners at the respective agencies. Of course, it will follow the regular evaluation process and also the timing of this as of the funding agency that of course is applicable. The other possibility is to submit somewhere else, somewhere abroad. When you're a researcher from the Flemish community, you can also submit in Slovenia at ARIS, in Germany DFG, in Luxembourg FNR, in Sweden FORMAS, of course in Wallonie FNRS, in Austria FWO-F, in Poland NCN, or in Switzerland SNSF, and since last year also at NWO. However, this is only with the exact science domain. For researchers from the French-speaking community, you can also submit your proposal abroad in the following countries: in Germany, DFG, of course also in Flanders, FWO, in Luxembourg, FNR, or in Switzerland, SNSF. So there you can submit your full proposal, again with the budget details included of all the partners that are part of the consortium, so at the lead agency abroad. Again, don't overlook the obligatory administrative submission at your own funding agency, and the evaluation will be done in the funding agency where you submitted to. Next slide. Collaboration within Belgium allows trilateral. As you can see in the yellow screen above, you can have trilaterals with Luxembourg, Slovenia, Poland, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Sweden. I know it's a lot of info, therefore please have a look at our website. When FWO becomes the lead, the deadline is the 1st of April, as it always is, except when this is a Saturday or a Sunday, then it's the first working day after the 1st of April. And you have to submit your administrative version to FNRS, and this before the 8th of April. It needs to contain an identical PDF, but I'm sure my colleagues will give you more details about this. All the FWO, but also all the FNRS regulations will apply, including the project quota. The French-speaking partners must abide to the FNRS regulations, and the project durations is maximum 4 years and should be equal on both sides. When you submit to FWO, FWO will perform the evaluations according to its own regulations in place, and the most FNRS vise is an integrative project. Next slide. When you submit to FNRS, FNRS will become the lead agency responsible for the evaluation, also with Luxembourg, Germany, or Switzerland. When you submit to FNRS, the deadline is the 7th of July, and you have to submit the administrative version at FWO before the 14th of July. All FNRS and FWO regulations apply. Make sure that the Flemish partners abide to the FWO regulations. The project duration is maximum 4 years, equal on both sides. In that case, FNRS becomes the lead and performs the evaluation according to its own regulations. And FNRS will inform FWO about the funding decision. There is a ratification. We will always follow the recommendation by FNRS, and there is a start of the contract on the 1st of January 27, so the project starts on the 1st of January next year. So this was the introduction. I will now still share some details on the statistics. Maybe you should have a look at this slide later on because it contains already a few years of data. When FWO is the lead or when FNRS is the lead, you can see the amount of submitted proposals at both sides and the ones that were successful, both trilaterals and bilaterals. Then I leave the floor to my colleagues of FNRS to proceed with a more detailed explanation on a submission within FNRS.
Thank you, Isabelle. So I will just talk to you about how you can participate in the WEAVE initiative within the FNRS. So first, a quick look back at the past year, what happened. So this is the state of the submissions and funding that happened during last year's call in 2025. So you have the WEAVE call where FWB researchers went outside and participated in other calls. So for example, as you can see with the FWO, we had 27 proposals and 2 funded proposals. So this is just one example. And then we've had some also like 54 PDRs in our call, in the credits and project call, that were submitted, including partners from outside of the Wallonie-Brussels Federation. So as mentioned before, the FNRS collaborates with 4 partners. So Luxembourg, the FNR, Switzerland, SNSF, of course, Flanders, the FWO, and Germany, the DFK. So you have, as mentioned before, and as we explained each year, you have 2 possibilities. Either you're going to a hotel, so you're going into another agency in order to submit your project, or you play at home and you submit your project to the FNRS. So these are the 2 schemes that we have. And it's important that you understand the difference between the 2, because one, you're not playing within the FNRS, and the other one you are. So if you choose the lead agency, which is another agency than the FNRS, so one of the agencies which are partnered to the FNRS, so the partner agency is fully responsible for the entire evaluation process. The FNRS here is in charge of establishing if the project is eligible according to its rule or not. But the evaluation is done by the partner agency. You need to have the administrative submission at the FNRS within 7 days after the call closure of the partner. So for example, if I take again the FWO, its call closes on the 1st of April. So you need to have submitted an administrative application to the FNRS for the 8th of April. Our WEAVE rules for accumulation is you can only apply for 1 WEAVE at a time. So you cannot apply for a new WEAVE. So you cannot go to another agency and apply before the first WEAVE decision has been taken. The proposals submitted are in direct competitions with all the other proposals that the funding agency to which you submit receives that year. And the results are announced by the partner agency, and then almost simultaneously we try to communicate them also from the FNRS. These participations are under a common regulation, which is the WEAVE regulation. On the other side, you can also play at home. So when you play at home, you participate in the So you participate in the credit and project call from the F.R.S FNRS. Here, the F.R.S FNRS is responsible for the entire evaluation. The weave partners should also make, of course, their administrative submission to their respective agency within 7 days of our call closure. And here, the PDR rules apply if you're a partner from the Fund for Scientific Research, from the FWB. The results are announced by us, the FNRS, and all the procedures are regulated within the PDR regulations. So now I'm going to talk about you participating in a weave project. So you go as a French-speaking community researcher, you go to another agency to apply for a project. So here, the specific rules and regulations are the weave regulations. So for example, if you want to go with FNR, so Luxembourg as the lead agency, the full proposal submission is in their core call of the FNR, which happens every year. You also need to have your administrative submission on eSpace and the administrative submissions of your other partners if you're in a trilateral project. The project duration for this collaboration is 2 or 4 years, but careful, it's 3 years mandatory if a DFG partner is involved. So if a German partner is involved, you need to have a 3-year project. Here are the key dates for this call. So the FNR deadline is set on April 21st. The FNRS deadline is therefore set 7 days later on April 28th. And you have to check with your other partners' deadline if you have a trilateral project, of course. As mentioned before, the FNR will be fully responsible of the evaluation procedure and will transmit their result to the FNRS, which will ratify. The project start date for these projects is January 1st, 2027. Similarly, you can do this exactly the same thing at the SNSF. The only difference here is that the deadlines are different. So SNSF deadline, we participate in 2 deadlines for the SNSF. They have 2 calls per year. We participate in the April 1st deadline and the October 1st deadline. So, of course, respectively, you have deadlines for administrative submission on eSpace set on April 8th and October 8th. And of course, the other partners should also check their deadlines. So for the April deadlines, the projects should start on January 1st, 2027. And for the October deadline, they should start on June 1st, 2027. Now I will go to the FWO. So the FWO, same thing as before. You participate in their junior and senior research project call with an administrative submission on eSpace 7 days after their call. Here, the deadline for the FWO is April 1st, with a deadline at the FNRS on April 8th. The projects should be 2 or 4 years, but are capped at 3 years, mandatory if a DFG partner is involved. The evaluation procedure will be done by the FWO, and the project should start on January 1st, 2027. And finally, you can also participate in the DFG call, so in the German funding agency. Here the full proposal submission will be done by your German colleague in the individual research grant, with the administrative submission on eSpace, of course. Here, the project duration is 3 years, no questions asked, so mandatory 3 years. So there's a specific system that we have for doctoral students, because of course doctoral studies are 4 years in Belgium. So you can declare the 36-month duration of your doctoral student, and you have the possibility of asking for an extra year of funding for the doctoral student, which is not included in the submitted budget. And there are some key information in our rules and regulation on how to do that specifically. So the key deadlines here are April 1st for the DFG deadline. So as you will know probably, and your German colleagues will tell you, the DFG does not have deadlines, but we impose that all projects that we examine within a year or within what we call a call are set at April 1st. If your German colleague submits the project after April 1st, then it will be evaluated in the next year of round. Okay, so you need to check, of course, that you do your administrative submission and the other partner's deadline if it's a 3-year project, if it's a trilateral project. The evaluation procedures are done by the DFG, and the project should start on January 1st, 2027. So here's a quick recap of all the different dates and deadlines and project duration that you have for all 4 partners of the FNRS. So I will not detail them as I've detailed them before, but you can have a look at it after this webinar and look at what the possibilities are. Now you can also play at home, and so invite colleagues from outside of the Wallonie-Brussels Federation into the PDR call of the FNRS. You can add them to your PDR. So if you want to work with a Luxembourg, Swiss, or a Flemish colleague, then it's exactly the same dispositions. So the full proposal submission should be done in the PDR call of the FNRS. The project duration is 2 or 4 years, as in the PDR call. Our deadline is set on July 7th, 2026. And so the partner deadline is 7 days after that of the FNRS, which will be July 14th. The evaluation procedures of the FNRS apply, so you will need to choose your committee in which you are going to be evaluated, and the project start date is set on January 1st, 2027 as well. For DFG, it's a bit different. Here, of course, we have the limitation that the project duration has to be 3 years, no matter who else is a partner. The deadlines do not change, so it will still be July 7th, and the partner's deadline will be also July 14th. The cost here, the cost for the entire duration of the PhD, so the 48 months, are included within the maximum budget. And why is that? It's because we afford you a 4-year budget into your 3-year project. Okay. The evaluations procedure will be followed by that of the FNRS, and the start date of these projects should be April 1st, 2027. Of course, all these can also be trilateral. So here it's the same thing. You submit your research proposal in the PDR call. The project duration is 2 or 4 years, 3 years if you involve a German partner, and the key dates do not change, and the evaluation procedure of the FNRS applies. The only difference is that if you have a German colleague in your project, then your project will start on April 1st, 2027, sorry. There's a small typo here. So here are the key dates again. I will not detail them again, but please contact us if you have any more questions and look them over in order to construct your budget. And here's a timeline of the general procedure from this WEAVE initiative within the FNRS. So on April 1st, you have the submission deadlines for FWO, DFG, and SNSF, which makes April 8th for the eSpace deadline. On April 21st, you have the submission deadline at FNR. On May 19th, our call from the FNRS opens, which closes on July 7th. And then the projects should all start on January 1st, whether they're WEAVE projects or PDR projects, except for those that have a DFG partner, which will start on April 1st. Once again, I invite you to go and look at the timeline very carefully after the webinar. And here are some contact information, so do not hesitate to write us an email or call us if you have any more questions. And now I will give the floor to the FWO colleague. Tina.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So within FWO, next slide. First, some general informations. So when FWO is the lead agency, you have to submit your proposal to one of our specific FWO expert panels. You submit it as a junior or a senior research project, fundamental research, because WEAVE at FWO side is embedded in this channel for the fundamental research projects. There is a specific application form available in the FWO e-portal. So it's really called FWO acts as lead agency. There is quite recently a tab introduced on research security. There are 10 questions in this tab. It's some kind of self-assessment that needs to be done by you as an applicant, of course, together with your entire consortium. There are also some slides on FWO's research security available because there have been already some online webinars on this topic, so you can find some slides there. There is also an overview available online with the dedicated contact persons at your own Flemish host institution in case you have more questions. We have the overview online available of our FWO expert panel structure. You can find over there for each panel the panel scopes, also more information on our specific interdisciplinary panel and the recent changes that have been made to our panel structure. When you submit to FWO as lead, you enter into competition with all the submitted FWO junior or senior research projects fundamental research. So WEAF is definitely not a separate competition within FWO. After the evaluation procedure, FWO as lead will formulate the funding recommendations to the involved foreign WEAF funder, so to our partner agencies. And then in the end, each WEAF funder funds the own research teams, of course. When we are partner agency, you submit your proposal abroad, so to another lead agency, to another funder, who is responsible for the entire evaluation. There is, however, an obligatory administrative submission that needs to be done to FWO as partner agency within 7 calendar days after the deadline of the lead agency. FWO partner also has a specific application form in the FWO e-portal. The tab Research Security, as mentioned some minutes ago, is also part of this administrative obligatory form. Then, of course, the lead agency will evaluate the proposal and will do funding recommendations to FWO as partner. This is ratified by our board. This is just a formal step in the procedure. So there is no separate or on top FWO evaluation performed. We just ratify the funding recommendation done by the lead agency. And then we will, of course, fund the Flemish part of the WEAF proposal. Next slide. Regardless of whether FWO is in the lead or is the partner agency, for the researchers in the Flemish community, so those who request FWO funding, they always have to comply to the regulations and the rules of the FWO. So more specifically, the rules of the research project's fundamental research. The budget forks for staff and consumables are also always the same. If FWO is lead or partner, it doesn't matter. You can always apply at FWO site for at least 50,000 per year for the entire project. So this is really a minimum level for all the Flemish federal or non-Flemish institutions included. That has to be minimally 50,000 a year for staff and consumables, and maximally 145,000 euro a year can be asked per Flemish or federal institution. So this is a rule that applies to the institutions that apply specifically for the FWO funding. There is also an FWO accumulation rule, the quota as we call it, that has to be respected by the individual researchers at FWO site. So you can submit maximally 1 research project fundamental research per application round. And there is also the maximum of 2 research projects fundamental research that can be requested or already ongoing. The reference date for this calculation, the calculation of this rule, is the date on which the newly awarded project would normally start. So, for example, if you submit a WEAF project in 2026, so this year, in this application round, this submission will count as your maximally 1 project submitted in round 2026. So being part of the group of projects starting on the 1st of January 2027, if successful. We also have a look then on the already ongoing projects on the date of the 1st of January 2027. So if successful, your new submission, your WEAF project, will start on 1st of January 27. So on that date, you can have maximally one other project already ongoing, a regular FWO project or a WEAF project. Both are taken into account. Next slide. About the FWO evaluation procedure. So if we are lead agency, there is actually a two-step procedure in place. First of all, there is the remote assessment. 2 external reviewers and 2 panel members will be assigned to your specific proposal. They will write independently from each other, they will write reports. And then there is the rebuttal phase. So the applicants, they can rebut only, of course, for corrections or clarification. It is not possible to add in the rebuttal phase any new information to your application. And then afterwards, the panel rapporteur, which is also one of the panel members, is actually a 5th reviewer. He or she will write a synthesis report, taking into account those 4 review reports and the rebuttal done by the applicant. In step 2, there is the actual panel meeting, and there the aim is, of course, to come to a consensus scoring and a ranking within a specific panel. The outcome of the panel meeting is, of course, selected proposals and rejected ones. And we have afterwards the feedback towards the applicant as well. Next slide. About the weight, so 25% weight goes to the research team, so the scientific capacity, track record, and collaboration of all the individual researchers taking part in your application, so also the non-Flemish ones. Then 75% weight is given to the project, the scientific quality, the relevance and originality, also the quality of the research approach and the feasibility. Then the budget. So after the panel has come to the final ranking, they also discuss the budget. So this is not an evaluation criterion, but the panel can give advice to the board about budgets. For WEAF projects, the FWO panel really has a look at the budget that is requested at FWO side, but also at partner side. So they really have a look at the entire integrated proposal. Next slide. Our timeline, as always, the deadline for submission at FWO is the 1st of April, also this year. Then there is the phase of eligibility in April. In April, August, we run through the external and internal peer review phase. And then in September, there is the rebuttal phase. You can already put in your agenda, if you would submit to FWO as lead, you will get the opportunity to rebut specifically between the 10th and the 21st of September. This is fixed, this will not change. So you can already block this date in your agenda if you want to rebut on an FWO as lead WEAF proposal. In October, December, we enter into the selection and the granting phase. Afterwards, we provide feedback towards the applicants in January. And at FWO side, the project will always start on paper in the contract on the 1st of January 2027. This is fixed. Next slide. How is WEAF evolving within the FWO? So for this call, you can see here some a map of the partners with whom we are already collaborating. And in addition, the lighter green is, of course, the Netherlands, because we are currently running a pilot call with NWO Domain Science of the Netherlands. Next slide. Here is a list of our current partners. So we are currently collaborating with 8 of the formal WEAF partners, and then a 9th partner is NWO for the pilot phase currently. So you can submit a bilateral proposal to FWO or to one of these listed partners. And there are also trilateral proposals possible, but this is not possible for NWO Domain Science. For the Netherlands, because we are still in the pilot phase, you can only submit bilateral NWO FWO projects for the moment. The coming years, we will further roll out WEAVE, so we will also enter into collaboration with the colleagues of the Czech Republic, Norway, and Croatia, and of course, any new partners that might sign WEAVE in the future, we will also collaborate with them in due time, of course. Next slide. There is, however, an additional opportunity. So if you submit to a lead agency abroad, FWO is then partner agency, but there is then the possibility to already collaborate with partners from Croatia, the funding agency HRZZ, because as you can see, the frame, the dark blue frame, if you submit to ARIS, Slovenia, SNSF, Switzerland, NCN, Poland, sorry, I'm too many names. If you submit to the colleagues of Slovenia, ARIS, to the colleagues of Switzerland, SNSF, or DFG Germany, you can expand your collaboration to Croatia as well, because they have bilateral agreement. So this is an extra opportunity for the moment to collaborate with Croatian partners. Next slide. Now I will go into detail for each of our 8 plus the Netherlands with the pilot for each of these partners, but I will go through the slides quite quickly because afterwards you can still have a closer look at the details. So if you submit to FWO with FWF, so the Austrian funding agency becomes a partner agency, our deadline as always is the 1st of April. You need to do the obligatory administrative submission to FWF in due time. Make sure that you submit there the identical PDF of what has been submitted to FWO lead, because the colleagues of FWF are quite strict when it comes down to this upload. So make sure that it's the identical PDF. The rules for the Flemish part, as said before, are the FWO rules, and Austrian partners need to abide to the FWF regulations. Project duration maximally 4 years. We do the evaluation. We do the funding recommendation to FWF. The ratification by FWF as partner is possibly delayed until March 27. So we will only be able to allocate mid-December in a conditional way. And afterwards, as soon as we have the ratification by FWF, it becomes really a final full granting decision. At our side, projects start on the 1st of January. In the upper right corner, you will always see in the coming slides which trilateral collaborations expansions are possible. Next slide. When you submit to FWF, so FWO is a partner agency, the cutoff date or the deadline is also 1st of April. So they really apply a specific cutoff date when FWO is partner agency. You can find more info on the FWF specific regulations on their website. You need to do within 7 calendar days after the 1st of April the administrative submission to FWO. Make sure to use the correct form in the FWO e-portal. Again, same rules apply at FWO side, also with respect to the quota, so the maximum project that you can apply for. Projects of maximally 4 years can be applied for, and then we wait for the funding recommendation by FWF, which is expected by the end of this year. At our side, projects start on 1st of January. Next slide. To collaborate with your partners in Switzerland, you can choose FWO as the lead agency. So the same rules and conditions are here on the slide. Actually, we will do at the very end, after the evaluation, a funding recommendation towards SNSF. Normally, they still ratify within the same year. So by mid-December, you will know the results. And your project, if successful, can start on 1st of January 27. If you decide to submit to SNSF as lead and FWO becomes partner agency, the deadline at SNSF side is also the 1st of April. Please be aware that the 1st of October deadline, because SNSF has 2 deadlines a year, but the October deadline is not a possibility for FWO as partner agency. So if you want to collaborate with your Swiss colleague and you want to submit to SNSF as lead, it's only possible within the deadline of the 1st of April. You can find a link with the specific SNSF regulations. We wait for the funding recommendation. It's also expected somewhere second half of 26, and you can start on the 1st of January. Next slide. If you want to submit a Flemish-Luxembourg project, the rules are the same. However, we want to point out here that quite recently at FNR side, at the Luxembourg side, there have been some changes with regard to the eligibility criteria and conditions. For example, some changes in the budget forks, so what can be applied for at FNR side. There is also a rule about application pause for the Luxembourg colleagues, and there are rules more specifically on the topics that they need to fit the Luxembourg national research priorities. So make sure to check the FNR website and documents well in advance so that you are really aware of all these recent changes at FNR side before you submit your application. When FWO is lead, project duration is maximally 4 years, which is different in the next slide when FNR is lead. So again, we will finalize everything by the end of this year and you can start 1st of January. But when FNR is lead, so the next slide, there the deadline is the 21st of April, the FNR deadline. As I said before, make sure to really go through the FNR website and documents to read about their recent changes. The project duration when FNR is lead is maximally 3 years, also at FWO side. However, a PhD in the 4th year is allowed. So in case a PhD student is requested in the 4th year at FNR side, you are also allowed to apply at FWO side for a 4th year budget, but this can only concern costs for a PhD and bench fee related to this PhD. So you really have to scientifically motivate, justify this 4th year budget year, actually. We wait for FNR's funding recommendation by the end of the year, and after the ratification, you can start again on the 1st of January 27. Collaborating with Slovenian partners. Everything is exactly the same for FWO as lead, except for the project duration. There is a difference if you submit to ARIS as lead. But again, we wait for the evaluation results by the end of the year and the ratification by ARIS. Next slide. So for ARIS in the lead, the next call launch. So actually, we need to update this slide because the call was very recently launched by the colleagues of ARIS. So I will make sure that before we publish these slides, that the information is there. You have to submit again the FWO partners administrative form to FWO. Here, the project duration is maximally 3 years. When ARIS is in the lead, you can only apply for maximally 3-year projects on FWO sites as well. And projects start on the 1st of January. Next slide. Collaborating with your partners in Germany. Here it is very important to know that regardless of whether FWO is lead or partner agency, as soon as you want to collaborate with a German partner, as soon as a German partner is involved in your WEAVE project, the project duration is 3 years. Even when it's submitted to FWO, also in the trilateral projects, always maximally 3 years if DFG is involved, and the ratification by DFG can only be done in spring. So as it was the case for FWO-F Austria, we will again need to conditionally communicate granted decisions in December, and afterwards we can transfer into a final one as soon as we have the ratification by DFG. Next slide. submitting to DFG, Germany in the lead. They also have a specific cut-off date when FWO as partner is involved. This is luckily also the 1st of April to make it very clear for you as an applicant. So as I said before, projects that can have a duration of maximally 3 years. They perform the evaluation, DFG performs the evaluation, and they communicate their funding recommendations. We ratify them, and you can start normally on the 1st of January. Next slide. Collaborating with Polish partners, so then NCN is involved. Here it is very important to be careful when you draft a proposal, because there are some elements that may impact the eligibility. So you cannot mention any names of Polish PhD students or postdocs due to the obligatory open selection procedure, which is in place at Polish side. So you should really mention names of the people that will be recruited at the FWO side, if you already know them, of course, but in no case you can mention specific names of the Polish participants in the project. And you should also carefully justify the budget requested at NCN side and use the specific exchange rate of NCN for the conversion from euro to the zloty. Then, yeah, again, we finalize everything by December and projects start on 1st of January when NCN is the lead. So the next slide, please. The current call actually recently closed. So NCN normally launches its calls mid-September with a deadline mid-December. So we are actually now in a full evaluation procedure at NCN side. But the same rules apply for the Flemish researchers. For the current call, we expect the results to be known by mid-2026. And the project's successful project will start on the 1st of January 27. Next slide. Collaborating with partners from Sweden then. Here I would like to point out also some elements that may impact the eligibility of your proposal. More precisely, the Swedish researchers and the Swedish part of your joint WEAF proposal, they must adhere to the restrictions within FORMA's areas of responsibility. So the focus of FORMAS as a funding agency is really on environment, agricultural sciences, and spatial planning. But we have an overview, a document available online in which you can find more details on these areas of responsibility. Make sure to go through this document before you start your application, so you're well aware of the eligibility criteria at Swedish sites. We expect ratification in December, and you can start on 1st of January. Next slide. When FORMAS is in the lead, so the current call also recently closed at mid-October. So we are also here in full evaluation procedure at Swedish sites. Normally, FORMAS launches a call second half of the year, in autumn somewhere, but we aren't aware of the new launch date yet because the current call is still ongoing. Here again, when FORMAS is lead, you also have to make sure that the Swedish part of your project really falls within the scope of FORMAS, the areas of responsibility. The project duration at Swedish side, when FORMAS is lead, the project duration is fixed at 4 years. So a shorter project duration is currently not possible. The current call, we expect results also mid-26. And the successful projects will start on the 1st of January 27. Next slide. Collaborating with Dutch partners. As I said before, trilaterals are not allowed because we're still in a pilot phase. So only the bilateral FWO-NWO projects are possible. Here it is important to be aware of the fact that we are organizing a pilot call specifically with NWO domain science, exacte en natuurwetenschappen, it's called in Dutch. So only proposals eligible within the fields of earth sciences, astronomy, chemistry, computer science, life sciences, physics, and mathematics are eligible. This means when FWO is lead and you submit a project with NWO domain science as partner agency, some of our FWO expert panels are actually excluded. So some of these panels are ineligible. Make sure to check which ones are not open for this pilot call with NWO, because this can definitely lead to ineligibility of your proposal, and that would be, of course, a pity. It's also important to know that, of course, at the Dutch side of a WEAF proposal, the rules of NWO domain science apply. This means that maximally one Dutch applicant is allowed in the proposal. Make sure to check this when completing the Dutch part of the FWO application, because this also can lead to ineligibility. We drafted some very straightforward guidelines on our pilot call with NWO, the Netherlands. So please carefully read them before starting your application to avoid in a later phase a possible ineligibility of your proposal. The rest of the timeline remains the same for FWO as lead. Next slide. When you want to submit to NWO domain science as lead, we become the partner agency. Actually, the NWO deadline is tomorrow, the 24th of February. After this deadline, you still have 7 calendar days time to do your administrative submission to FWO partner. Here again, we stress out the specific guideline document, which is available online, to make sure that you check which panels or which fields are excluded, which fields are possible for this collaboration. Maximally one Dutch applicant allowed. So NWO domain science will perform the evaluation the coming months. We expect somewhere in autumn the results for ratification by our board, and the projects start at FWO site on the 1st of January 27. Some points of attention. It is important that in your application, in your WEAF proposal, you indicate and scientifically justify the budget of all the teams included. So independent of where you submit, the lead agency needs this information and also the justification, because they will also evaluate the budget requested abroad. You have to make sure that the names of the main applicants and the requested budgets are identical in what you submit to the lead agency and what you submit to the partner agency, because possible discrepancies between these two submissions might lead to ineligibility. Also make sure, of course, to always respect the FWO budget forks. So, as I said before, for example, in the case of NCN Poland, some of the forms of the partner forms will ask you not to mention specific research team members by name, but it is required in the FWO forms that you list all the persons involved, Flemish and non-Flemish one. All the ones that will officially take up a role in your consortium need to be listed in the form. Not only the supervisor or supervisor spokesperson, but also possible co-supervisors. And of course, make sure that you respect the rules and the conditions of your partner agency. Again, I want to stress out that for NWO domain science, there can only be one applicant at the Dutch side. There are no co-applicants allowed. Please don't forget the obligatory administrative submission that needs to be done to each involved partner agency, because lack of this obligatory submission also leads, of course, to ineligibility of your proposal. And you need to upload the complete and identical application with all the attachments, not only the project description. You need to upload everything in this partner agency form. Next slide. You cannot submit an identical WEAF proposal to more than one funding agency in the same application round, so a parallel submission is not possible. The project duration might be different depending on the choice of the lead agency. We have an overview available online. At FWO side, we really take into account the project duration of the entire integrated project, the project as a whole. So not only the period in which you request FWO funding, but really the project as a whole is taken into account. Success rate of the lead agency always applies, but as said before, it is capped at 20%. So this is the so-called WEAV threshold. And communication with researchers is done through the lead agency. So where the proposal is submitted and evaluated, there you can find feedback on this evaluation decision. Next slide. Some more links to specific websites that are of importance. And of course, the FWO contacts details are there as well. Next slide. Then we move over to the Q&A round.
Yes, thank you very much, Tina. So this is the last part of the WEAV information session. So we have a number of questions and answers that we received before this information session already, which we have put within the slides and where we have provided answers already. We have also tried to answer your questions directly during this session. And some questions have been tagged to reply directly to, so we will take them afterwards as well. So let's start with the first question from the slide. So my research project concerns urban animal welfare. It is a transdisciplinary project, so we consider the research domains are either life sciences or social and human sciences. Is this an advantage for WEAV funding? I would say that there is no thematic advantage within WEAV funding, because WEAV is a bottom-up initiative. You can, it is your research ideas that are proposed. There are no thematic restrictions or bonuses. And what is always important within the scientific committees, you always need to choose one specific scientific committee. Within the FNRS, so there's 14 different scientific committees, but you also have a scientific committee for sustainable development. I'm not sure if my colleagues from FWO would like to add to that. On the FWO side, the scientific committees.
Yeah, we have the website online with we have 30 monodisciplinary panels and then one specific interdisciplinary panel. You can find the information on the scopes and also the panel compositions online. So everything is available in all transparency.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So next question, is it possible to submit a joint research project involving universities in Belgium, France, and the Netherlands? Unfortunately, l'Agence nationale de recherche, the French research funder, is not part of the WEAV initiative yet. They are an observer and they have observed WEAV ever since it started, but they still have not engaged in formal negotiations to become part of WEAV. I think best thing, the short answer is that it is not possible yet to do with Belgium, France, and the Netherlands. And so a more longer answer, I would suggest that that your French partners indicate to the ANR that WEAV is really an interesting option, and they would be really be in favor of ANR joining WEAV as well. When it comes to Belgian Dutch, so Belgian Dutch projects, I think Tina mentioned this already, that they have a call with NWO in the sciences domain. I understood that this call will close soon on their side, I presume, and it's also possible to do this within the FWO call that is currently open, Tina?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, our call is open also for the bilateral projects with the Netherlands.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So, and this is a real question for FWO, so I will read the question, but I will invite my FWO colleagues to reply to it. So, does FWO allow two Flemish institutions to collaborate in WEAVE with one German partner? Would the Flemish institutions be responsible for a joint PhD project tied to WEAVE? Tina, will you take it again?
I can. Yes, so at FWO side, it is indeed possible to include more than one institution, as long as, of course, the added value of each institution, each research group is clearly scientifically justified. Yeah, they can have a joint PhD. Also needs to be clearly justified in your application. All the budgets requested for this joint PhD or any other expenses should also be clearly described and in detail and justified in detail, because the lead agency, of course, needs this information to be able to perform a proper evaluation of the entire proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. Do we have the possibility to be the promoter of both a WEAVE project and a PDR-FNRS project? I think I flagged several of these questions as well to reply to them directly. I will take them now. So when it comes to promoters from French-speaking Belgium, so eligible for the FNRS, the rule is very simple. You can be at the same time the promoter of a PDR project, and this is a PDR project within our PDR call, and so this means you can be eligible. The PDR project can be a PDR project with only partners from French-speaking Belgium, but there can also be a WEAVE partner in this project, but it still remains a PDR project. And next to that, you can have one WEAVE project as well. So, and that really for us, WEAVE, all caps, I've written it in a response as well. WEAVE, all caps for the FNRS really means these are the calls of our partner agency. So these are the calls where you apply at FWO, at the FNR in Luxembourg, with the Swiss. So, and these are our WEAVE, and you can have so one PDR and one WEAVE, all caps at the same time. I have two questions for the speaker. Is it possible to resubmit an application which has been submitted the year before? And will the format for the FNRS submission will be the same as last year? These are quite simple answers. It's possible to resubmit your application, but of course you need to respect the rules of cumul of your agency, and you can indicate this as well. And as for the format will not change for the FNRS submission this year. It will be exactly the same as last year. In case I'm the promoter of a PDR with a WEAVE partner from Flanders, should my co-promoter from Flanders match his budget to the FNRS scale, or could he add additional tasks for his lab in the project and increase his budget to the FWO scale, which is twice as high as the FNRS scale? As is written down as well, the FNRS has financing rules. If you are eligible for the FNRS, you need to abide by the financing rules of the FNRS. If the FWO is your funding agency, you need to abide by the FWO rules. So there does not have to be an exact match between the budgets. You need to respect the rules of the funding agency where you are eligible, in fact. Tina, would you like to add anything to that?
No, not really.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And then a call on what are the deadlines in 2026 for FWO and for FNRS. Two different deadlines for the same joint application. There's only the deadline. There's two deadlines. You have the deadline of the FWO call, which was mentioned, of course, numerous times already. So the FWO call, the deadline is on April the 1st. And then you have a mandatory administrative application to the FNRS, which needs to be submitted for April the 8th. So either you participate in the FWO call, or you participate in the FNRS call, and if you participate in the FNRS call, the central deadline is July 7th, and there is a mandatory administrative application to the FWO, which needs to be submitted within a week afterwards, so before July the 14th. Tina, I saw you raising a hand, but you...
Yeah, but you tackled what I wanted to say, that of course a parallel submission is not possible. They have to make a choice to submit to either you or FWO.
Exactly, yes. Thank you. And then, is it the lead agency which decides on whether to fund the WEAVE projects, or do both agencies do that? There was one of the questions within the Q&A as well that I replied to directly. So it's always the lead agency that gives the funding recommendation, but the partner agencies need to ratify this funding decision. This is, in principle, this is automatic. But each funding agency has different rules for this ratification. Some are very straightforward, and others need to go by their board. And that is why it can take more time for some agencies to ratify the decisions of the lead agency. Tina, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to answer one of the questions related to this. Does it happen in practice that a partner agency does not ratify the lead agency's positive decision? So for FWO as lead, it didn't happen before. So we were able to always get the ratification by our partner agencies. Of course, the lead agency has to share in all transparency with the involved partner agencies the documents related to the evaluation, so also the documents related to a certain decision that has been taken. So we all the agencies involved in WEAVE make sure that we share this information so that the ratification can go hopefully rather smoothly.
Very good. And then a specific question for FWO, if I'm not mistaken. Can I submit a WEAVE application with FWO as the lead agency in addition to an application of a junior research project submitted to FWO? If not, can I submit both proposals if FWO is the partner agency for the WEAVE proposal? Tina, go ahead.
No, this is not possible because we have the rule that WEAVE projects, regardless of the fact whether FWO is lead or partner agency, a WEAVE project is always taken into account for the maximum of one research project, fundamental research, per application round that you can have on your name, being supervisor, spokesperson, co-supervisor. So no, it is not possible. You can only have one project submitted in a certain round.
Okay, these were all the questions that we received up front. So during this session, we have tried to respond to all the questions. There's some of them that are still open at the moment. I kept the question open from on FNRS side. If I already have a PDR running, can I apply for WEAVE as the coordinator, FNRS as lead agency? So if FNRS is the lead agency, it's a PDR. If you already have a PDR running, you can not apply for a second PDR. As said before, WEAVE all caps means that you apply at one of the partner agencies. This is still possible because you can have one PDR and one WEAVE all caps project at the same time. Voila, and then there's another question about cumul. Florence, I'm not sure you want to take this one. So assuming that an applicant has no funding from FNRS, no PDR, no WEAVE, I read in the PDR rules that he can apply to one PDR as promoter and one PDR as co-promoter. I also read in the WEAVE rules that he can apply to one PDR and one WEAVE all caps, meaning one application within a call of a partner agency. In this last case, is it assumed that he is promoter of the PDR? Can he still apply to two PDR, one as promoter, one as co-promoter, plus one WEAVE? Or is WEAVE counted as a PDR in some sense?
So the answer is yes. So You have the PDR, and in the PDR call, you can apply to one PDR as promoter, one PDR as co-promoter. So that's the thing. And you can also accumulate this with one weave application. So when you're going abroad to apply. So you can have, in essence, 3 projects running in parallel. 2 PDRs and 1 weave.
Yeah. So 2 PDRs, one as promoter, one as co-promoter, and 1 weave, all caps. So meaning a project that was submitted in one of the partner agencies of the FNRS. I think that given the info that you can lead an FNRS PDR and be part of a weave, I suppose those can be on the same topic with the same partner, though. Florence, go ahead.
Well, technically, they can be on the same topic. It just cannot be the same project, of course, because we do not accept double funding. And I don't think any of our partners accept double funding. So you can work in the same field, but it cannot be the exact same project that you apply on both sides. And this will be checked.
Thank you. And then there's a very specific question on a joint PhD in Fédération Wallonie-Bruxelles with a Swiss partner. I think this can be possible. Florence, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, it is possible. You can separate the personnel as you wish, basically. You can also have a joint PhD within, you can separate the budget if you want to have the person only, this person can only be attached to an FWB institution, for example, and then it's a joint PhD, or you can have a separation of the budget. This person will be employed by the FWB institution for 2 years and by the Swiss institution for 2 years. It's really up to you. It's all possible.
Yes, and then there's a question that I thought that was answered, but perhaps Florence, you can take a second look at it. So I have a question on eligibility. A weave project between 2 universities located in Flanders and Wallonia is planned. The Wallonian researcher plans to submit also a second weave proposal with someone else outside of Belgium and has 1 PDR finishing in summer this year.
Okay, so as we said before, you can only apply to 1 weave at a time. Okay, so if you have a weave running, you cannot apply to another weave until that weave is finished. So if I take this specific example, so this project, a weave project between 2 universities is planned. So you will apply to the FWO and this person from the FWB will ask for a weave project with the FWO. So that's their only weave. They cannot apply to another weave project with DFG, for example, with a German colleague. However, they can submit a PDR and include a Flemish partner if they respect the accumulation rule of the PDR, which is 1 PDR at a time as a main promoter. I can understand that this is not very clear to explain, but if that person wants to call us, we can explain it even further.
I have a thank you here, so I think your explanation was clear enough. Okay, very good. There's a great thank you as well. I have no more questions. If any questions, by all means, we are here to answer any questions that would still remain. In any case, and as you have seen, so this is the main teams working on weave within FWO and FNRS. So Tina, Isabelle, Florence, and myself, we work on that. If you have any questions, do not hesitate. Contact us. We are there for that. We are there to advise you, to see how things can work, what is perhaps not possible, etc. We are there for you. So, and we want to make it work, of course. So that is our objective. Coming to the end of this information session, I would like to thank you very much for participating in this session. I wish you, of course, the best of luck in submitting weave applications, and I strongly advise you to, if you have any doubts on eligibility, on budgets, on whatsoever, feel free to contact us so that we can check up front, because it's better to have one question too much up front or have a problem after the deadline. So thank you very much for participating, I hope to be in contact with you further. Thank you very much.
Thank you.